we have the much-awaited fireside chat that is going to begin between Ravi Mhatre and Schott. And to introduce the two speakers of the fireside chat, I'm going to invite Aman Walia shortly on stage to give you a brief introduction for the two of them. I was thinking about what I should say about Aman, what intro I should give. And then as I was looking at the lines of our conference, which is called the Leadership Conference, I thought of what I want to say about Aman. Aman is leadership personified for our teams. If you think of leadership, it's not a title. It's about creating a movement. And that's what Aman has done for the Alumni Association, for all of IIT Bay Area leadership, all of IIT Bay Area chapters. And so Aman is the founding president of IIT Bay Area Alumni Association. He is the force behind all these conferences that we have been doing for the past few years. He's a leader who knows how to motivate the team, how to get us into action, and make all this happen. So from IIT Bombay, he's a serial entrepreneur. He's also has received distinguished alumni awards for IIT Bombay. And without further ado, I would like to invite Aman up on stage to introduce our fireside chat speakers. Aman Walia.
Hi, this is not about me, okay? So let me, I'm here to introduce Ravi Mhatre, and typically, you know the person whom you're introducing. Honestly, I don't know Ravi, but let me tell you, his best introduction to the IIT community is this. What you see outside in the common area, you have 35 startups all around, started by IITians, and you have 3 unicorns in between, okay, and all started by IITians. And all those 3 unicorns, 2 directly and 1 indirectly, have been created by Ravi. Okay, that's the best introduction you can give to Ravi and his connection to the IIT community. To give you a background, here is what I have. Ravi is the founder and partner at Lightspeed Venture Partners, a global venture capital firm with more than $6 billion under management. He's the son of an Indian immigrant and a Brooklyn-born mother. He lived in 4 different states on 3 different continents. I don't know the combinations. Okay, before turning 18. So that is essentially the experience of variability which he brings into his style of investing. He founded Lightspeed in 1999. Ravi was focused primarily on enterprise IT, mobility and internet and cloud-based services, and applications helping more than a dozen companies and he's helped more than a dozen companies from acquisition and about 5 to IPO, which is, I think if you look at the top 3 investors in the Valley, you would find his name now. He's not an IIT alumnus, okay, but he claims he's an IIT investor and should be given an honorary degree from IIT. Okay, so he's invested in and has been on the board of a large number of IT startups like Nutanix, AppDynamics, Zscalers, Rubrik, ThoughtSpot, and many others. So let me invite our honorary IITian investor, Ravi, to come over and start today's chat.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Well, thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you all for being here on a Saturday morning. And I'm Ravi Mhatre, and this is Schott, the CEO of Mulesoft, which is an infrastructure company that I've had the privilege of working with Greg and the company for over a decade now. And really, I thought, the thing about this morning that would be most interesting is not about me, but really to have all of you get to know a little bit more about Greg and his story of, being in Silicon Valley, his story of like becoming a CEO, and his story of leadership, and his story of Mulesoft, which I think is at this point, the largest software M&A acquisition that's happened in the last 15 to 20 years in the Valley. When I was thinking about this panel, I thought, the thing, I've worked with a lot of IITians who have started companies. Most of these companies, there is sort of brilliance around the sort of technical aptitude, the understanding of a core IT infrastructure stack innovation that can lead to a better, a great product. Mulesoft is a company that really also fits that, sort of style of company. It was not founded by IITians, but many of the issues that the companies we back that are started by IITians, very, very similar issues. And really a lot of it is, hey, if you make sort of, something that has great sort of technology, but it sits sort of very much in the back end of a data center, how do you build a business around that? How do you stand out? How do you create, value in the market? And it's sometimes even more of a challenge to do that than it is for a consumer company, where if you really get product market fit, it's very obvious to the consumer or the user why your product is different, and you start to get adoption and growth. So I thought it would be, really great to get, some thoughts from Greg, who I think if you look back at the story of Mulesoft, it is really one of taking, a really unsexy, mundane piece of technology and turning it into one of the, leading companies for sort of technology infrastructure in Silicon Valley. I'm sorry, I didn't prepare an introduction for Greg, but what I wanted to do is let more Greg in his own words tell you a little bit about himself and what his journey was from, I guess, coming out originally to study at Stanford to going on to have a career in Silicon Valley, and then ultimately becoming the CEO of Mulesoft, which you ran for 12 years? 9 years, and still going actually within Salesforce. So I'm going to pause myself there and just turn it over to Greg. Greg, maybe tell us a little bit about your personal story. How did you end up getting to here and us having this fireside chat?
Okay. So I guess Ravi already said it. Mulesoft was not founded by IITians because obviously you would not have named it the sterile offspring of a donkey and a horse. So. I understand that doesn't work so well in India. So it was the company was founded by a Brit who saw that the biggest problem with integration was this repetitive, painful, what he called in the UK, donkey work, and that's how the name came, and that's how Mulesoft got started. But just to give you a little background on me, I was trained as a mechanical engineer out of undergrad. I worked in some manufacturing businesses and did some kind of early stage manufacturing management. And then I went to business school at Stanford. I worked at the Boston Consulting Group for a few years. And then, I don't even know if you know this, but a Lightspeed partner actually introduced me, Barry Eggers introduced me to a startup out in San Francisco. And I moved back out from Boston to my first startup in San Francisco in '94. And basically had done multiple startups, three different startups leading up to Mulesoft, and I'd run a lot of different things, ran marketing, ran operations, ran engineering, had a little bit of sales, and was kind of a fix-it person. Every time there was a problem in a function, I would just kind of go around and fix it, and then I would get bored and I would go do the next one. And I'd always thought it would be interesting and fun to be a CEO, and in 2009, I got a call. I was at SpringSource, which some of you may know was a Java framework, Spring, and was since acquired by VMware. But I got a call about the job at Mule. At the time, it was called Mulesource because that was worse than Mulesoft. And got that call, and it was 20 people. It was in the middle of the economic downturn, and we were selling to banks and insurance companies. So that was like. And
Greg was smart enough to take that job.
And I was smart enough to take it. We had a little bit of money and the beginnings of a good management team. And we had Ravi was on the board. We had some good early stage investors in the company, but it wasn't clear really at the time how it was going to play out. And so from 20 people in 2009, we went public a year ago. and then actually announced a couple months ago, we announced the acquisition by Salesforce, and we've grown now to where we're about a $400 million run rate and 1,300 employees. So it's been a really good fun run. So.
Well, maybe you can just comment a little bit on, as a CEO, are there particular people who inspired you? Talk a little bit about what you think as a person leading a company. What's important in leadership to you to be a really good leader as a company grows that fast?
For me, so the 3 startups that I'd been with before, what I'd seen, not in all of them, but in the bulk of them, was that how to think about building out the team and the culture was actually very far down the list. And so people were focused on either making products or making money, but the foundational elements of how you build a culture from the very beginning just really it wasn't high on the list. And I had this professor in business school, Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great and Built to Last, some business books that some of you may have read. And in business, this guy was my hero. I drank just gallons of the guy's Kool-Aid. And for him, what he talked about was, it was all about building a long-term lasting company, and it's all about who you get on the bus. And if you bring the right people in and build the right culture and build it foundationally, and then obviously you got to be smart enough to apply that strategically to the right sectors of the economy, and be able to get product market fit and all those other things strategically, but you just build the foundational elements of the company from the very beginning. So I'd say first one was Jim Collins, and I just took a lot of that in, and we got very focused from a cultural standpoint. We actually codified, pretty late, and just only a few years ago, we codified our values. But the values of the company at Mulesoft were be a good human, own it, make it awesome, and we just really focused on, and be fearless, and we focused on those core values. And just everything we do, you just got to make sure that all leadership, all management behavior just continues to support those. You really never want to contradict them. People are always looking for any kind of hypocrisy in that. And we just made sure we stayed with that every time. And I'd say the other thing that we focused a lot on was no matter what we did, it was always doing the right thing. And by that I mean, we had situations, right? Over the years, you have just situations that come up, and it really tests your mettle as a leader, where you have a situation where there's a behavior issue, and it's one of your top performers, and you can say, well, this person's a top performer, and we're just going to look the other way, or you can take immediate, swift, decisive, sometimes very painful near-term actions. But over the long term, people see that, and they know that it's always in the best interest of the company. So we just got very focused as a management team about, no matter what, always do the right thing for the people, do the right thing for the customers. Sometimes we'd have a situation where contractually we would have a customer in a spot where you could have exerted the power of the contract, but you knew it wasn't the right thing to do. So do the right thing, and you know that it's just playing for the long ball. If you're playing that way long term, it's really, frankly, long term, it's a selfish way to behave, because it's always going to pay off for you and for the company long term. So we just focused on that.
That's excellent. And just quickly related to that, because I know in the audience we probably have a lot of aspiring, entrepreneurs, people who want to start companies or join early stage startups. If you want to have that great culture, what do you have to do to make sure that you're hiring the kinds of people who are more likely to fit into that kind of long-term oriented, teamwork oriented culture?
Yeah, hiring. I believe that hiring and the ability to hire well is far and away. There's just nothing else that compares in terms of importance to a leader in a company. I guess there are some people that are just so unbelievable, an Elon Musk or a Steve Jobs, that have such incredible vision that their vision, they can surround themselves with, they do still surround themselves with great people, but that vision might be able to carry it forward. But for the rest of us mortals, hiring great people, hiring people that are better than us really defines the success of the company, no matter what. And then, so if you believe that hiring is really truly, hiring well is your number one job, and it's going to make and really break you, then you say to yourself, okay, so how many people here anybody here have a degree in hiring, got their undergrad degree in hiring? How many took one course in school in hiring? All right, so none of us know how to do it, right? None of us have been trained how to do the most important thing. It blows me away, right? How can business schools not teach hiring? It should be, a 2-semester course, but nobody does, and it's basically just seat of the pants, just kind of wing it. And for us, we got incredibly intentional about our hiring processes. We built out scorecards and attributes about how we're hiring each person. We did very detailed roundtables. We did massive reference checking, big time back channel references. We actually started moving about 4 years ago to giving everybody an exercise to try and see them do their job. That to me is the part that's most interesting. It's like, if you think about, I always think about, let's say you were trying to hire a woman to be on your World Cup soccer team, and you did it the way we do hiring. You brought her into the room. Do you like to kick a soccer ball? Oh, I love to kick a soccer ball. Do you run fast? I'm really fast. Okay, you got a job. And you'd never hire somebody on a professional sports team by asking them a bunch of questions. You'd say, let's go out and let's watch you play soccer. I want to see a tape. I want to see you do the job. And so what we got very focused on is putting somebody actually in the job, giving them an exercise that was close to as humanly possible as to actually doing the job itself and just seeing how they did it. And we did that, all the way from, executive assistants to heads of marketing. Head of marketing that we were looking at, we'd bring them in and say, what's wrong with our website? And we want you to put together a plan on how you're going to fix it. And let's see them in action, how they behave. Not only how smart are they, but how strategic are they, and how do they interact with you, and how do they deal with pushback on their ideas, and let's watch them in real life. So to me, I think hiring is probably the most underemphasized, undervalued parts of a business. Now, I had the head of talent at Mulesoft reported to me. Didn't report to the CFO, didn't report to the head of HR, reported directly to me. I think there's nothing even comes close to importance.
And any other sort of quick pieces of advice? If I think there's a lot of, again, people here who aspire to start a company or join an early stage, rocket ship startup. Any other quick pieces of advice for what they should be thinking about if they're going to consider that?
Outside of, just in general.
Yeah, just in general.
There's.
It's partly how do you pick? There's so much out there. You're gonna.
Yeah, that's a big broad one. But I guess I would say, it gets back to the hiring part of it. You're also hiring your board. You're also hiring your investors. There's a lot of money out there, and it's all green. And a lot of people think of it as, hey, some people think about it as, let's just maximize valuation, and I want to have a big fat valuation. And I never thought that way all the way along. I thought about, let's bring the best investors into the company. Let's work with the best board members. And we did great on valuations, but if it means that you're going to lose a little bit of dilution on a round of capital, but bring somebody in. Ravi is with the company over 10 years. We had all our ups and downs. It was never, up and to the right completely. We had quarters that we blew. We had hires that I made huge mistakes on. We had all the warts that a startup company has. And Ravi and other leaders, other board members, there's just this steady as she goes, never panicking, always supportive of the company, asking the right questions. You want somebody who's going to push you and challenge you, and Ravi calls it pressure testing. Ravi'd say, can we pressure test that? And that's what you want. You want somebody that's pressure testing the thinking, the ideas, but you also want somebody that is not going to panic when, the proverbial stuff starts hitting the fan, because that's always going to happen. So that to me is as important as the hires, is just getting a team behind you on the board side that's going to be those kinds of support people. And the other thing I would say is, just as you're structuring your board, think a lot about it's something you really want to kind of handcraft, everybody having different roles. If everybody in the board is this big strategic alpha thinkers, that's a problem. If everybody's just grinding away numbers operator wise, that's a problem. You need to have a lot of complementary skill sets and interests on the board, so that they don't, all fight for attention on one area.
Excellent. And so, it's just shifting gears a little bit. Your thoughts about, you referenced Jim Collins and this good to great. How do you build great product when you're talking about a sector that is in the sort of bowels of the kind of infrastructure stack, and a lot of, again, I think people in the audience here we've got people with immense technical aptitude. I've been involved in a lot of IT companies where I think the brilliance of the architectures that probably come out of people in this audience is, there's no other place that would surpass it. But going the next step, because I think Mule also had a very innovative architecture in the beginning, and turning that into something that is a great product where you can really grow a huge business versus an okay product where it does something reasonable for an IT operator. How do you even get the company to the point where it figures out what those differences are and really strives for a great product off of which you can build a massive business?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the infrastructure space, and I always joke around about enterprise software and infrastructure. The tagline for all the companies that are in these spaces should be, "We suck less." And because most of it's terrible. And so if you're just less terrible than the competition, you win. It's really awful, right? They would never survive in the consumer spaces building the kind of products that they build. And the key for us, and what I was really focused on was, I saw this great blog one time. I was talking about the life cycle of, I forget, it was kind of the life cycle of a startup company, and it was, build a great product that solves a customer, very specific customer's needs, and then start getting larger customers and start disrupting the incumbents that have big bloated products, and then start getting large customers who demand big bloated products, build a big bloated product, and then get disrupted by the next company that comes along. And that is the life cycle of these companies. And if you look at, almost every single, the one I always loved kind of coming out of the open source space was JBoss. And JBoss was this Java application server, and it was beloved when it first came out. And then after a while, everybody talked about how JBoss was this bloated pig of software. And you think to yourself, wow, like nobody set out to take this really streamlined app server and turn it into something that was bloated and painful to work with. And I think what happens is, over time, you just keep adding more and more features because you're making the big bank happy, the big insurance company happy. And, I joke internally about no Clippies. Who here remembers when you started typing a Word document and Clippy would come out and say, "You look like you're typing a letter"? Do you remember that? I got a couple hands, and you try. I still have PTSD from Clippy coming out at me, And it was just like, who thought of that? I'm sorry if the product manager for Clippy from Microsoft is in the room. Apologies, but over time, product managers will just bloat products up because their job is to go talk to customers, find out what they need. They think that's their job, is find out what they need and go do it. And I know it's cliche to say it, but Steve Jobs was always. His whole thing was, you don't want to be too arrogant about it, but it was kind of like, I'm going to tell you what's great, as opposed to ask you to give me a list of 400 features that I'm going to start knocking down the list on and bloat the product up. So we just got, from the very beginning, we were incredibly proud about how every time a release came out, it wasn't, here's all the new things it would do. It was, here's all the cruft we took out of it. Here's all the things that we made easier and cleaner and faster. And it was, so we developed this mindset in the engineering product management team of, kind of a new release was about a cleaner, simpler release as opposed to more. And that's hard. We had to talk a lot about Clippy, a lot about, saying no to some big demanding customers and just making it cleaner. And frankly, I think the great customers actually really love you for that. They know that they're better off if you don't build their one feature and you're just going to make the product better. They will go along with you. And if you get bad customers who just want you to do exactly what they want, those are customers that you probably don't want to listen too much to. That's the danger zone, But if you're a pleaser kind of CEO and a pleaser product organization, you'll do that and you get yourself into these rat holes and then you've got this product nobody wants to use.
So it sounds like the mindset is sort of a little bit less is more and really thinking in today's kind of modern products, consumer grade experience, enterprise grade, back-end capabilities, and you really need to be disciplined about that. And that's not, letting the users overwhelm you. It's about really focusing in on what you think they need from a sea of inbound requests. Make or break moment for the company. I mean, there were many, but what stands out in your mind? I'm sure the audience would love to hear about that.
Make or break moments. I mean, that's one thing I get asked all the time. You know, when did we have that thing? And I mean, you know, we never had that thing. There was never.
Maybe not one, but the integral of the experiences.
The integral, the area under the curve was decent, but there was never that where we just said, oh, you know, all of a sudden that product got launched and it's just taking off and going. And I wish we would have had one of those, but it was very much. And I when you talk to more and more entrepreneurs, you hear that that's actually much more the norm. If you're looking for that crazy hockey stick moment, it's great if you can find it, but I think you shouldn't get distressed if you don't. It's a constant stream of improving and building and improving and building and never being satisfied. And you were asking about inspirations before. The other inspiration, and Ravi, you actually introduced me to him, is Frank Slootman, who ran what used to be the CEO of ServiceNow. And his whole thing is just about how their company and their entire management team is he calls it low calm. They're just never satisfied with anything. They celebrate things for about 5 minutes, he says, and then they just go on. And we have the exact same kind of culture. It's just continuously just kind of grinding it out, building the product, building the team, working through issues. You know, if we were to try and distill a few things down, there are a couple things that happened. So we had this Mule open source ESB, enterprise service bus technology. We started building it for the cloud. It wasn't clear that time exactly how that was going to work and how fast the cloud adoption was going to be going. We saw it happening in the SaaS world, but you know, AWS and those things were still early days when we started building this out. But we started seeing that pick up, and then the moment where I actually flipped from being pumped up about the company and believing we were building something interesting to saying, wow, we're solving one of the biggest unsolved problems in IT, and believing that we could, was when APIs started really taking off. And that's where we were just perfectly positioned for that. Our customers were already using us to build out APIs. I saw APIs as being, if you think about the internet was around for 20 years, never went anywhere, and then 1994 or 3, HTML hits, and that's really the first kind of internet API, if you will, and the thing just goes, you know, complete hockey stick. And I looked at machine to machine, and the kind of the public RESTful API as being this way of actually taking $700 billion in custom point-to-point integration code and actually turning that into a platform that you could build something on top of. And you know, thinking about the computer network and what Cisco had built out, and saying, wow, you know, the computer network kind of ended the layers, you know, kind of, I guess, layer 6, I think technically, you know, we kind of ended at layer 6 and really never got past that from an application network. And we're looking at going, you know, this opportunity to actually build an application network for applications, data, and devices. Now APIs are actually enabling us to put a platform in the middle of all that. That was probably the one moment in time, 2000, maybe 13, where you could go, okay, that's starting to get really interesting. The other thing that for us had happened was we had an ASP that was growing fairly moderately. It was decent. And then when we started shifting to talk about API-led connectivity and transforming the clock speed of your business, all of a sudden we went from having conversations with architects and companies to conversations with CIOs, and our average selling price went from about $50K to $200,000 a year, and many multi-million-dollar deals. And that changing the narrative of the conversation, the vision of what we could do for a company, going from plumbing and technology to really transforming people's businesses. When that started hitting is when you could, I guess in hindsight, that's when you could feel it.
Yeah.
In the moment, it never felt like that was happening. It was just grinding, you know, but in hindsight, those are some moments that took off.
And you know, I know we're running short on time, but one more thing, because I know some people in the audience have asked me, they're curious about Salesforce. Mulesoft went public, company was doing really well, a year and a half into the public company journey. Why did you decide to entertain getting acquired by Salesforce? And what's Mark Benioff been like, just in your, you know, a lot of the interactions you've had with him recently?
Yeah, so we were, company was growing really well, And we'd known Salesforce for a long time. They were an investor in us in 3 different rounds. They'd been our customer. We'd been their customer, as you can imagine. And we liked them. I'd always thought that if there was a company that had a really interesting strategic fit with how they're continuing to grow out their footprint, how they look at the world, the way they build their culture, it was a really interesting company. And over the years, they had different periods of time when Mark had been interested and others on their executive team have been interested in, do we or don't we get into this space? And over the last 18 months, what's happened for them is they've realized that it's not just about applications, it's about digitally transforming businesses. And if you go out and you talk to a CEO about how you're going to digitally transform their hospital or their retail establishment or their insurance company or bank or whatever, you talk about the digital transformation, connectivity to apps, data, and devices is at the very core of that. And so Salesforce recognized that need, and so it became incredibly strategic for them as a real strategic imperative. And then we saw it as we had kind of 140 account executives. They had 6,000, and we're thinking, and their ability to drive leads and drive opportunity. And we're looking at it, we're going, we can drive this business faster. We can continue to be very successful for our customers. It can be great for our employees. It can be fantastic for our investors. Clearly a different path from being an independent public company. So a different trail that we're going down, but one that I think for almost everybody, all the key constituents, was a really positive thing. And then as far as working with Mark goes, it's been really interesting. I mean, I went to his executive offsite a few weeks ago and was just kind of blown away. It's 30,000 people, and the speed at which that place operates is just mind-boggling. They're faster than we are, which is, that's saying something. I'd like to think that we moved really fast. I feel like they actually move faster. And just the clarity of purpose and the drive and the mission that they have. And they have this V2 Mom thing, which is kind of, some OKR related. And that's been baked throughout the company, and it aligns everybody to move really quickly. And so it's been fun and interesting. It's going to be a wild ride. But we always talk at Mulesoft about having a rocket ship, and I feel like we went from a small rocket ship to a big rocket ship, and we got a lot of rocket fuel along the way, so it's good.
Well, clearly you must have been pretty convincing. For Salesforce is the biggest acquisition they ever made at $6.5 billion, I think by almost 2x. So I think Mark probably expects great things from you and the company. So final parting comment, just IT and the IT ecosystem. How do you get more ITians into MuleSoft, or what's your thought about that?
I have been, we've had a handful of IITians over the years. I got to say, I don't know why we don't do better. You guys need to, I've always told the recruiters, like, guys, buy us for that. I want to see more. Seriously, if you ask any recruiters, I say I want to see more IIT people coming across. Ravi and I have been trying to figure out how we haven't done better over the years. I don't know if it's the San Francisco base versus South Bay or whatever, but
that's partly why I want to get Greg up on stage here. Now there's no excuse. Everybody knows who he is.
Yeah, there's
send him an email.
There's shuttles, there's trains, there's all kinds of ways if you're down here. Would love to see more. Smartest people on the planet, so I want to see more.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, thanks again for having us, and I guess we'll wrap with that.
All right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Greg.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ravi. And Greg, please stay on the stage. We are going to invite Subhash Tantri to come and give you a little token of appreciation. And guys, do flood their email boxes, right? So we want more IITians in SMule for sure. Please come. Just a little token and to say thank you for being here.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah. Mine should be the small. Is that your honorary degree? Extra large. Oh yeah, the honorary degree is right here. Thank you. This is yours, yeah. The honorary degree you got here.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, the gift is being given by Sudhir Kadam. My fault, I invited the wrong person, but thank you so much. That's not Subhash Tantri. Subhash is sitting right there. Yeah, he's been on a special diet. And talking about diet, people who are going out, 2:15, we will be back for the panel discussions. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ravi. Pleasure to have you. 2:15, please be back. Don't be late. We want to stay on time.